Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
Middle of February. No announcements yet? Come on, what are we doing here? This is crazy. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Oh, man, we are getting close, though. I do feel like we're going to get a little something because there's been some rumors kicking around. I've seen stuff on the interwebs. I lurk in the shadows. I don't really comment. I check the message boards. I check all the Discords. I do all that crazy stuff. I'm in there, but I don't really communicate with others. But I've seen chatter kind of pick up a little bit. And there has been some cool, interesting stuff that we're not going to really talk about this week. I want to have enough rumors and stuff to talk about, like a full episode on. So we can kind of discuss that maybe next week if there's enough stuff to really get into. But this week, this idea kind of came to me while we were recording last week's episode. And that was when we were talking about, possibly mashing up Vanity Ball with Seek and Destroy or something like that. And it got me thinking of what other past houses and or scare zones could we really kind of mash up. They might not have to be connected by any means, but just theme wise, are there certain characters that look cool that we want to see in a different environment? Is there, a way to connect, certain things from the past to the future and kind of bring stuff up to speed a little bit? So we kind of came up with this concept a couple days ago and we were like, let's run with that. So we're presenting to you 7, I believe it is. Jamie, you have 3, I have 4. Yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. We're going to bring to you 7 new concepts that kind of take some older original properties, mash them together. And I'm curious, Jamie was getting mad because she wanted to tell me she was so surprised, but I was like, no, just wait till we record.
He never wants to share the before.
No, I'm not a present shaker. I don't need to do that.
I am.
Oh, yes. So we don't know each other's concepts. So I'm be curious if there's anything that overlaps or stuff like that. So we'll kind of one at a time go through our little ideas. I didn't do, a crazy breakdown of what these concepts are, but I have reasons for why they are paired together. So this is a good little concept. I didn't want to do too many because I think this is a fun concept to revisit in the future because there's plenty to choose from. Obviously, not everything has to go with everything, but these are just some fun little ideas to get us through these quote unquote off-season months. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm excited to get into it. And before that, let me crack my beer open. I thought I had finished all of my Sam Adams winter beers, but there was still a couple stragglers in there. So I'm topping that off. I got my little Sam Adams winter lager. This is just that little festive style beer. I'm hoping it still smells decent, so we should be able to rock and roll with this thing tonight.
Winter
but
lager.
Once my fridge is empty, that means I can restock it.
Exactly. We've been slacking. I've been slacking, at least in the beer drinking department.
It has been busy. A busy couple months for us. I feel like that always happens with the holidays. You're like, yeah, once Christmas ends, it'll kind of slow down, and then you're like, oh, right. Once New Year's ends, it'll kind of slow down, and then you have trips and all kinds of stuff. And even before the holidays, it's Horror Night season from September all the way through October, and then Halloween's big, and then right into Thanksgiving, and then right into Christmas, and it's boring and all that fun stuff. So
if we had more space, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say the beer is not skunked and tastes good.
That's good. I was gonna say if we had more space when we were in California, we did hit a couple fun breweries out there that had some pretty good stuff that we could have taken home, but we also had many other trinkets and things and shopping sprees that we went on, so we didn't have as much room to take stuff home. And I don't know how that works. I don't think you'd be able to take it home.
You can't bring beer. Liquids. That's like you
that's
always
true.
have the travel
I was just gonna say,
stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, no, good amount of breweries in San Fran. It was a nice little. You were kind of getting bored with me picking breweries. I was picking a lot of as many breweries as I could find.
Like, where do you want to go tonight? Checking out this place, and I was like, Another brewery, huh? No, but they were good, the ones that we went to.
All right, so I guess I should just kind of kick this off,
I was gonna
and
say
we'll
you
kind of
started off.
yeah, we'll go back and forth a little bit. This one was interesting. All right, I'll just jump into it. What if we mashed up Dark Zodiac
Okay.
from 32
Mhm.
and put it with Dead Waters 27? You could have that, New Orleans swampy style thing where these Zodiac creatures sort of have broken into our realm
Mhm.
because of some sort of like voodoo curse gone wrong, or something that's like a classic tale as old as time, especially in
Right.
the horror realm. You're messing with something you don't really fully understand, and then you have to
Mhm.
deal with all the repercussions of it. I really like that vibe, that like cursed New Orleans bayou-y style
Yeah.
vibe, and we haven't really gotten to dive into that since really Dead Waters. And I feel like we were dancing around it a little bit last year with all like the voodoo, Dr. Oddfellow. Like there was like the Zodiac, there was like elements there that were reminiscent to a point, but we haven't really dove back into it. Maybe it's recency because last week we were talking about the Voodoo Queen a little bit, and
We
it kind
were.
of got the wheels turning.
Got
But
you inspired.
yeah, and Dark Zodiac was again a zone that we'll just say it disappointed. I think the expectations were so high, the character designs were really cool, but other than that, the story just sort of fell flat. And it was just this weird, like, cobweb of connection to Dr. Oddfellow. It's like, whoa, is the power of the Zodiac. So here's like Zodiac creatures. There you go. Like it just didn't
Yeah.
fully work. But if you could tie those characters into something else, like they're in their own powerful realm of astrological power, full beings or something like that. I'd like to see some story of like a curse or magic gone wrong and
Mhm.
they've broken through the barrier. It's almost like Insidious ish,
Okay.
where it's like they're in the further and they need something to latch them into the other world, and then once they get there, it's just they're kind of wreaking havoc a little bit. But I want to set it in the Bayou style area.
I like that because it gives a little bit of a story to it. Because I feel like that was the biggest letdown of Zodiac. Because, like you said, I feel like it was just mostly like Zodiac characters in the zone with the chainsaw. So it didn't really have too much going for it for the backstory that we like to see with some of the other houses and scare zones. And personally, I really like that whole Louisiana bayou vibe kind of stuff like that. And I feel like thinking about it now, I feel like Dead Waters is kind of the only thing we had similar to that. I want to say maybe in the earlier years they had some sort of like zombie gras or something
Yep, they had
like that.
zombie
That's what I
gras.
thought.
They also had the Bayou of Blood scare
Bayou,
zone, and
that's what it was.
that
Yes.
branched into Dead Water. So
Mhm.
that's like the same world. But yeah, we haven't really had anything since 27 in that
Yeah.
evil Mardi Gras style world. I don't think we really need zombie gras back again
No.
because they're just putting zombies on everything and calling it a specialty. But yeah, I like when there's a true story there, and
Yes.
I would like to see that.
I do like that. That's a good idea. See, I feel like the disclaimer I have to have, I was trying to think of like houses for this that I feel like houses and scare zones, I guess, because I used a couple of each that could kind of like mesh two all together. And I feel like every time you think of these episodes ideas, I think way too into it and way too hard. And I'm like, man, hopefully these are good. And then you come out with this elaborate backstory. You're like, yeah, I didn't really go too much into it about the deep thought about what I was gonna, how I was gonna
Oh,
describe it. And I'm like, damn, I had like 2 sentences. I'm really gonna have to fucking talk this up.
well, I did the same thing that you're describing because every single house idea I have is one sentence.
Yeah,
So I'm just kind of elaborating as I go.
freeballing it, right?
Yeah, I'm just really winging it on this one. But
Mhm.
yeah, I like that one, and it's tough too when you're thinking about these because you don't want to pick stuff that's like too similar because then it ends up just being that thing. If
Yeah,
you took stuff like the harvest and wicked growth, it's like it's pretty much the same thing at this point.
right.
So
Mhm.
it's almost I have my other two are not related at all. But I kind of find a way to make it fun. And the other one's like it's almost there, but
Mine are
that's
kind of
my first one. The Dark Zodiac Waters.
I like see,
Um,
you're God, maybe I was off on this because mine are kind of similar. So, which is good though. So I'm glad we're gonna kind of have different stuff or stuff that could be interpreted differently, I guess.
yeah, so let's get into your first one then.
Okay, so for the first one, I did the original Scary Tales, the first iteration of Scary Tales, and a mashup with the Tooth Fairy house.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for the little blurbs that I put for the little inserts, keep the same storybook style setting as Tooth Fairy, kind of when you're walking through and you can hear over the speakers or whatever, they have them kind of like telling the story
Young
of
James Centerville.
exactly. Keep the storybook style setting as Tooth Fairy, but with the same characters as Scary Tales, and make the storyline as your. I was trying to explain it. I think it's easier for me to explain it than how I wrote it. But kind of as if you're walking like through a dream, and when you're walking through the beginning of the house, kind of with the storybook tiles that they had with Tooth Fairy, it could be them like telling you a bedtime story, and you could use the storyteller interpreted in this as well, which is what I wanted to add too. And she could kind of be telling the story to put you in a dream, and you're put in this dreamlike state, and you're kind of walking in the dream through the house with the different characters that were kind of like incorporated in Scary Tales. I know they kind of used Alice in Wonderland characters. They used some of like the more like nursery rhyme characters and stuff like that. But I thought that would kind of be a cool concept, something different. I really like the whole dream state
Very
niche or
fever
sequence,
dreamy.
fever dreamy kind of stuff. I've always thought that kind of stuff really like creeps me out, like kind of like backrooms kind of stuff. So I thought that would be kind of a fun one to do.
Kind of like the classic Macaulay Culkin movie, The Page Master.
I've never seen that.
Oh my
Fun
god.
fact. There's fun
Jesus
fact for
Christ.
you guys. There's as much as I enjoy movies, I feel like I haven't seen a decent amount of movies as well. Nick's definitely the movie buff here.
That will have to be on the
The Page. I've heard of it.
the
I've heard
watch
of it.
list.
All right.
Yes, it is a absolute, as what these young kids call a banger.
Banger. Nice.
A banger. I like that one a lot. That was really cool. I figured, I kind of thought you'd go somewhere like not Tooth Fairy, but like the Scary Tales stuff.
Mhm.
So I left those off my list because I didn't want to really double up on stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's two, let's call them franchises within
Mhm.
that HHN originals, with that being
Mhm.
Scary Tales and Slaughter Cinema, that like people just are clamoring for. Like there just
Exactly.
needs, there's a want there in the community to revisit these because they are so open-ended. You could have, it's like the Universal Monsters story, where it's just, you could have the banner of Universal Monsters and not really have it be too repetitive and boring. Where same thing with Scary Tales, you can do all kinds of different fairy tales. Same thing with
Exactly.
Slaughter Cinema, you can just make up more ridiculous,
Mhm.
B-grade horror style stuff and really not get too boring over
Mhm.
time, even though you're repeating something that's very similar.
Mhm. And you could even use like Tooth Fairy characters, or I was trying to think of more like one-off characters, not like holiday representation like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny and stuff like that, but you could do like the Tooth Fairy, you could kind of do the Sandman to kind of
I'm
interpret with
just gonna
that
say
like
the Sandman.
with that dream feel and stuff like that. I was trying to think of more that could be like those limbo characters or ideas that they've had, but I think that'd be a fun one. Nice little
I
mashup.
would I would like a Sandman style house because
Mhm.
it fits in that. It's not really quite a fairy tale, but it's like just like a, I don't know if it's not really an urban legend either.
He's
I
like
don't know
the
the proper
timekeeper.
term for it.
I
Yeah, I
feel
don't
like he's
know
like
the
the timekeeper
proper.
of nursery book rhymes. I don't know.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't know what it falls under,
Mhm.
but it's like everybody's heard of it. It's just
Mhm.
not, you don't read a bedtime story about
Yeah.
the whatever it is, what is it? The Sandman? Yeah, the
Sandman?
Sandman.
Mhm.
Sandman.
Mhm.
Sandman. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So I
So
thought that'd be fun.
for my next one,
Mhm.
I mashed up something I've talked about a lot that I want to see return as a house, and that would be an arcade from HHN
Ooh.
29,
Mhm.
and I would put that with Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears from 25. So I would take that concept of like, it's a TV show, much like I think we talked about last week, that Nick Arcade style TV show from back in the day where it put you in a video game and it was like all green screens and stuff like that. I would do something similar to that where it's like you're inside of these arcade consoles, you're inside the video game world, and it's that TV show of like, gone bad, where it's very Nick Arcadey, but they are actually trying to kill you. And once you're out of lives, you're done. And I would make it very just trippy colors, very like heavy 8, like pixely style, just like old NES style versions where you could get really funky with the character design. You can get really weird with like the transitions from one game to another, which is like your room would switch. You'd sort of go through different levels. You'd have different bosses. You could get really cool with like the sound effects. Like I'm thinking like how Dueling Dragons had a lot of just that. I don't know the proper term, but I refer to it as like the running sound, where it just the sound continues through the hallway.
Yeah.
You could have stuff just, I don't know. I love the whole arcade style aspect of things. And I'd love to see an arcade brought back in some capacity because they have the creativity to do it for sure.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they were too high on the concept to ever quote unquote call it up to the big leagues, but I just that event overall was one of my favorites, and that zone set the tone for the whole event. So to bring that back in a house fashion, I do think it would have to be in some sort of year where that 80s nostalgia plays a factor, but I'd love to see like a video game TV show kind of thing play out.
Yeah, you know me as someone who loves anything to do with arcades and nostalgic consoles and games, I think that would be awesome. And it's fun to think about too, because there's different ways you could interpret it when you think of like being put into a video game. I remember when I was a kid, some of my favorite episodes, and I remember them so well from like Courage the Cowardly Dog or like The Fairly Odd Parents. There was always a lot of those episodes in those different shows that would kind of like bring you into a video game and you would be in the video game and you would have those 3 lives to go through it. And I just always remember it being so techy and like pixely and kind of like that like cyborg aspect. So you could interpret it like that, or like you were saying, the 80s like arcade style, which I love too, to mash up and arcade it more, which would be really fun as well. But I feel like it's everyone's always thought at some point in their life, no matter what kind of game they play, they were like, man, it would just so cool to like be in a video game. And it'd be an enjoyable house. I feel like for a lot of people, it'd be well received.
Again, I'm going to reference another not so classic movie, but Frankie Muniz in Stay Alive.
No.
You ever seen that one? Nothing?
Not ringing a bell. Not ringing a bell.
It's a pretty not great horror movie where they get sucked into, like they start, it's almost like a video game that it's kind of like if Jumanji was a video game.
Okay.
Like they start playing this horror video game, but it's real life. So if they die in real life, and it's
that sounds familiar, I think.
And it kind of again bleeds into reality. I think it's like a witch style character who comes to life. It's I liked it, but it's not a good movie at all. Like it probably does not hold up. I remember just enjoying it more because I liked the concept.
Yeah.
But it's just another cheesy mid to early 2000s like bad horror movie that just kind of they all fall together at that point.
Yeah. That sounds
But yeah, that's what I have. So the Anarcade, blood, sweat, and fears mashup would be something right up my alley.
I like that. Well, my next one's going to be, you really called me out on this one, Nick. You really did, saying you didn't want to combine stuff that was too similar. These ones are a little similar, but you're going to see where I was trying to go with it too, because there's some characters I wanted to bring in that haven't gotten their chance. So, 2 also very well received houses. I know you enjoy both of these very much, and so does Seamus.
Ooh, excited.
It's going kind of basic, but it's going to be Wicked Growth combined with Scarecrow, The Reaping, but keep the same scariness and the same style that you had in Scarecrow, but add in that backstory of the Pumpkin Lord, make him more prevalent in the house, and then also, since we talked about it on the previous episode that I had as well, bring in Nathaniel Crow somehow and kind of finally give him his chance to have his own sort of house or own sort of spotlight. You could have it kind of set up too. It doesn't exactly have to be that like viney style from Wicked Growth or like the barns and hay and straw from Scarecrow, that kind of like farmer style. It could be too kind of how the story of Nathaniel Crow was. It could kind of start out being at Jack's Carnival and kind of telling his whole storyline going through of how everything perished, the pumpkins took him over, all that kind of stuff. So I thought that would be an interesting one. Like you said, it was a little similar to both of them, but I wanted to use it somehow because I was really inspired after reading the little icon blurb about him, and I thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah, it could sort of be like like a revisited sequel, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I would almost make it so that like Nathaniel Crow was the Scarecrow or something like
Something
that, and
like
he's been living
yes.
on the lands, and this is and I like the idea of doing the house where Pumpkin Lord is obviously grown now. You know, Wicked
Mhm,
Growth was the process of
mhm,
creating this character, and you didn't really get him till the end. So like
mhm.
to have a Pumpkin Lord style figure throughout the house would be good. And again, like maybe somehow explaining and tying in that Nathaniel Crow was the Scarecrow, and now he's like come back and he's he's still on the land or whatever. And there's a way to bring that character to life and have them do battle.
I
I don't
like
know
it.
if that's where you were going with it, but
No,
that was the concept I had.
no, I do like that. That's why once I describe things to you, I feel like you kind of know where I'm going with it. So I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no, I like that. I do think like that Nathaniel Crow character. I don't know if it'll ever get revisited, but there's like a cool history there that they spent so much time creating and tying in. And again, much like
That's what I'm
I said
saying.
with an arcade being like it probably has to come at a year where 80's prevalent. I feel like Nathaniel Crow has to be at a year where like Halloween's prevalent.
Mhm,
So we'll see if we kind of ever see that again, but
mhm.
I'd like to. Obviously, Wicked Growth was one of the probably most successful houses in recent history.
Yeah.
People have been clamoring for it. It was so successful that they made Pumpkin Lord an icon for the following year at 31. So it's just, I'm sure in due time we will revisit the old pumpkin patch.
Mhm.
All right, my next one. This one is ridiculous.
I like
I do,
ridiculous. That's okay.
this is taking a pretty successful, scary-ish house. I don't know if it's super, super loved, but
Mhm.
and mashing it up and creating just the ultimate campy, ridiculous concept. And that is taking Ghost Town, The Curse of Lightning Gulch from 26
Okay.
and mashing it with Invasion from 27, the scare zone. The
So what the hell is it
super
going to be? Aliens and cowboys?
pretty much.
I like
I
it.
want I want it to be like just like this, it starts out normal. It's
Mhm,
just like this western town,
mhm,
but there's like a crash landing of the UFO, but then it just becomes there's obviously scares in there because you can have, the aliens lurking around the western town. It kind of plays on that like just two crazy concepts going together. You could have like the saloon fight with these guys shooting out towards aliens, and
mhm.
you have bullets versus lasers and stuff like that, but I just want it to also have that super campy comedy style where there's just like aliens wearing a cowboy outfit or something like that. Like I just want it to be like so over the top ridiculous that it's
Mhm.
like people will not stop talking about this house.
I
It's
like
it's
that.
scary but still very very ridiculous and funny. And that's
Mhm.
something I feel like HHN doesn't do. Obviously they'll never do a goddamn Cowboys versus Aliens house, but like that's just something I feel like they haven't really done where it's just like something super ridiculous. I would
Right.
say like Treeks and Foons is like as close to like super camp. Obviously Killer Clowns was very successful, but that was an IP, not an original. So just talking it through, I don't have anything like immediately coming to the to mind of something that crazy that they've attempted. Everything obviously is very scary and spooky and fun and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but I just want a cowboy alien house so bad.
I like
Just
it.
when I started looking at them, I'm like, what can I pair Ghost Town up with? And I was like, well, there's not much like westerny stuff. Like, there's not much stuff that's like even in that realm. I'm sure I could play with some other stuff, but then I saw Invasion. I was like,
Mhm.
damn, this is sitting right there for me. This
Right
is right there.
there.
I gotta take it. I gotta, I gotta find a way to make money off this.
It's just simply too good.
It's simply
No,
too
I
good.
really like that though, and I think that's I feel like maybe there's a movie, Cowboys and Aliens, something's with Cowboys and Aliens or something along that line. So I feel like
Oh, I'm
that would
sure there's
definitely
plenty
be
of
that I
those.
was gonna say that would definitely be like the fun house, but I could see it working though. That's the worst part is I could see it working. Just being so over the top ridiculous, but like you said, I feel like the costuming would be really nice. I feel like they could have a storyline following it. The aliens crash into Lightning Gulch with their spaceship and take over, and it's a battle royale. I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, There
I'm
is a movie,
intrigued. I'm
Cowboys and
intrigued.
Aliens.
I knew
It's
it. I knew it. I was gonna say this sounds
it's
really familiar.
and it's 2011. It's Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford. Like, it's a stacked cast. I
Damn,
don't
someone already
know
sold
what
the idea.
I don't know what they thought they were getting themselves into by being in a movie called Cowboys and Aliens, or Cowboys versus Aliens,
Oh, that's funny.
whatever it was. But yeah, it was oh my god, it was directed by Jon Favreau as well.
Wow.
This thing was stacked. It had Sam Rockwell, Olivia Wilde in it, Paul Dano.
Does it
Wow.
have good reviews?
Eh,
Eh.
eh. I think it did okay, but the budget was 163 million and it made 174 million, so it did not do well at all. It barely broke even.
Yeah, I was just
That's what
gonna
happens
say.
when you make a $150 million movie about cowboys and aliens.
Right.
It's just not going to hit.
No.
Don't let that deter you away from doing this as a house, HHN. I swear, people will love it. This is the crowd. The only people that paid for that movie were probably the same people that go to the Horror Nights.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's what I want. I want a super campy Western town invaded. So what do you got for us next?
So I was originally gonna use a different one, but then the hamster wheel got turning a little bit, thinking of something more on the creative side. What if this one's kind of a little ridiculous too? I had to use my vamp somehow. Just really wanted to use the vamp somehow. Love
Just
them.
had to.
So
Just
what
had
if
to
we
use the
did
vamps.
Vamp 55, Scare Zone, combine, mashup with Psychoscarapy? So what I was thinking in my head, at the crazy asylum, they're having their kind of like little, it's still based in the 50s. It's going to be based in the 50s, but at the asylum, they're having their 50s dance, maybe for all the patients, something like that. The vampires crash the party, start attacking the patients. I'm kind of torn if I would either want them to team up and attack the staff and take over. But what I was more so leaning towards is once the vamps would attack the patients, bite them, they would all turn into 50s vamps and all take over so that's kind of where I got with that one. But I was thinking about it, and if I had more time to think about it, I feel like it would sound better than how I'm explaining it. But I've in the previous years when I've gone to Halloween Horror Nights when I was younger in the early years, I was a big scaredy cat. So I had like gone, I think, 2 different times when they had different iterations of Psychoscarapy, and I chickened out and I never went in them. So I'd really like to see it back so I could finally do it. Because whenever we'd went and I never wanted to go in the houses, my dad's like, we're never coming back here again and spending this money. And look at me now, it's crazy. But Psychoscarapy was always the one. I had a really weird fear of skeletons when I was younger. And I remember I went the year Psychoscarapy home for the holidays. And I remember the front queue was just the fucking like Christmas skeleton. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely not. So I'd like to see that mashup somehow. I think that'd be fun. And I love Vamp 55. I think other than 69, it was probably one of my favorite iterations of the Vamp Scare Zones.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that could be like played with too. Like you could have it like the patients like maybe are almost like in Freddy versus Jason, they're taking the medicine to like deter all the dreams.
Yeah.
They could like these could be vampires that have been giving medicine to not be vampires, and then something happens and one breaks out, or something happens and they kind of come back to light as vampires and start taking over the guards.
I like where you're going with that.
Or you could have something like where they're like all the patients like they're crazy and they're talking about vampires, but obviously nobody believes them because they're crazy, and then something does infect or infect the asylum and stuff like that.
Sounds a little bit better than my Shady Brook Asylum spring fling, I guess.
Yeah, I don't. This isn't Orange is the New Black. I don't think the people in the crazy home are getting 50s dances. It's like as prom.
I mean, I feel like dances were like the icon of the 50s. Like that was the big thing for them. So maybe they did.
The 50s, yeah. I don't know about inside the insane asylum. Like, you know what? You guys have been a little less crazy this week. We're gonna throw you a 50s dance. Blow it out.
No lobotomies this week.
Yeah, nothing. You guys did not kill any guards this week. Good patience. Good patience.
I just really want the 50s aesthetic back somehow. I just love it. And mixed with the vampires, it's just chef's kiss. It truly was. Truly is.
Yeah, there's definitely a way to involve that. I'm very curious if they will ever do a vamp house. I don't think they will.
Yeah. You don't
I think
really?
It would be fun because you have so many cool settings, but is a scare zone idea. Like, that's just what it is. It's a stage setup, it's costumes, and then that's it. There's really not much story to it.
Yeah.
If any of them really had a story, I would say it would have been last year's Summer Blood, because it has that story tied in of like, the two factions. Really, you had the vamps, and then you had the what were they, the werewolves, the bloodsuckers or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the biker
I
gang.
do too. Yeah.
But
I'll think of it.
there's a story there more than just, vampires in the 80s, vampires in the 50s, vampires in the 80s or 60s or whatever. But yeah, that would be interesting to see that kind of come to light in an actual house fashion. I'd be down to see that. All right, I think this is our last one. This is a quick episode because we're just kind of
another one after this. I got some more ideas rolling if you want to do one more.
You got another one? Okay,
no
well then
biggie.
I have my last idea that I have written down.
Okay.
If you want to spitball after that, feel free. But I kind of used up all the brain power I had left for the day.
I feel
coming up
bad.
with just 4 simple ideas.
I talked too fast. This episode was quicker than I thought. I'm like, man, now I gotta scramble. Let me think of something else. HHN wiki, please.
But yeah, so this one, interesting. I think there's a way to connect it where it's not as ridiculous as Cowboys and Aliens, but that would be taking Puppet Theater from HHN 30 and putting it with Vanity Ball from 29. So it's sort of like a gore galore, like puppet like house. I wouldn't have it as like a roaming theater, but it's almost like the people that ran the Vanity Ball have created these puppets out of humans and like self-mutilated them into beauty and have them sort of as like a fashion like display, essentially.
You could even do like a burlesque show kind of thing. I don't know.
like,
that like theater ambiance kind of like gives me that vibe.
I would have it be like this weird underground private thing where it's like, the high class society comes to the Vanity Ball, theater or whatever. And it's these people are essentially put on display. It's like this unknown society or whatever. And people can either purchase these puppets or what have you. But they're like still alive. Like, I want them to be like that weird, like you're buying a human, but it's like more of a decoration, and with all the modifications they make, it's all just like this crazy mutilated fashion. And I just think that would be fun. I don't know how else to kind of go into it, but the theater the puppet theater aspect, you're taking the theater, putting it into the Vanity Ball, and you're making these essentially human mannequins in fashion form. Not much function there. It's more just fashion.
I like that a lot, though, because I was really trying to think. It's funny that you use those two. I was trying to think of some way to incorporate puppet theater into something and Vanity Ball into something, because I feel like those were both, well, we got the house for puppet theater, but I feel like Vanity Ball was such a strong zone in the sense that I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I loved the scare actors in it. I liked the design of it, the runway setup. So it would be nice to see, and I know we've talked about it before in the past about wanting it to get its own house. So I like where you're going with that.
Yeah, that's another one. That's just another thing we talked about, Scary Tales and Slaughter Cinema being like just asked for. Vanity Ball, I think, is up there as well. I think that's something that people want to see return. And I don't want to see it return as a scare zone again, just because I don't want it to turn into the Vamp where it's like just a different iteration of the same thing. It's fun, but it kind of kills the zone. I want to see something original. I want this as a house, that weird, really fever dreamy, really grotesque mutilation. It's just this weird, like almost hostile style situation where they're taking these people and performing these procedures on them where they're kind of just confusing these characters, where they're like, test subjects. Essentially, they're signing up for stuff they don't know what it is because they're at their wits end with life or whatever. They have nothing else going for them, so they sign up for this thinking it's going to change their life, and lo and behold, they just end up being turned into these deformed, quote unquote beautiful figures by these masterminds behind the Vanity Ball.
Yeah.
And you can kind of play on that because the Vanity Ball is like, if you put it into a house, like the whole ball aspect of it, that's not something you got from the scare zone. It was more just a runway, but you could have this as a, dance, a big event ball kind of thing, a big gala, if you will. But
I
putting
feel
that
like
with puppet theater, you can use that.
yeah, because I feel like puppet theater was such a I think that's a good word, is it extravagant. Such an extravagant house. It was so beautiful, and I feel like same thing with Vanity Ball. It was just so extravagant with how it was and just over the top. So I think they could go well together.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Did you happen to whip up another one?
No, it sounds stupid. I don't want
Okay.
to use
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
fine.
what's the stupid one?
No, I was trying to think of some way to incorporate Sweet Revenge with HR Blood and Guts, but I would some way somehow because he's only had the Holidays of Horror house, so I was trying to think of some way to interpret them because I feel like I could see those two characters working very well together. Just the way
Mhm.
seeing HR Blood and Guts was in that house and seeing the way that Mr. Sweets was in the scare zone, I feel like they'd get along. I feel like they'd share a bond. So I'd like to see
I
them
was
incorporated somehow, but mhm,
I was trying to think of ways to get Sweet Revenge involved too, and I think
yeah.
I'm sure there's one out there, right?
Mhm,
There's got to be something in the depths of
mhm.
history where it's like this could work really cool.
You could mash it with an IP. I was thinking about that. We didn't really mash anything with IPs. I feel like that'd be a little bit harder, but if you really wanted to, when I think of it, I feel like just thinking of the Big Sweets factory and stuff like that, I for some reason immediately go to Chucky and like the doll factory and stuff like that. So
Oh god, the last thing we need is anything combined with Chucky.
hey, I'm not a Chucky hater. I know you are, but it's okay.
Don't fuck with the Chuck.
He could be his little minion, Mr. Sweets' minion.
Yeah, he could be something, that's for sure. No, I think Sweets could go well with something.
Yeah,
And again, like we said earlier, this is just kind of a test of this idea, and we'll revisit this idea again
yeah.
because Sweets is something that I don't think as many people are asking for it just yet because it's
Mhm.
so soon, but it lends itself perfectly to a house.
Yeah. I
But
was also
yeah,
gonna say, just for a funny one, that you could mash up Shipyard 32 and Hellblock. I feel
oh,
like those
Jesus.
kinda gave off the same vibe too.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same
It would probably
goddamn hodgepodge of
make it a little better.
chaos. Yeah, that is. I don't know if better. I don't know if they're salvaging the shipyard. I don't know. I mean, you could do shipyard. Like, just the idea of a
Shipyard could have
shipyard
been so
is
good,
cool.
exactly. It is cool. Yeah.
It was wasted potential for
Mhm,
sure because when we heard the concept, I know we're getting off the rails a little bit, but
mhm.
when we heard the concept, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, like
Yeah.
like that, and then it just did not work
You
at
could
all.
even they could even incorporate if they really wanted to, and if it was executed well enough, they could do Shipyard with Dead Man's, which I think
A
could
little bit, and you know
work
what? I just thought
somehow.
of one too. Um,
This is fun. I like this one.
Shipyard 32,
Yep.
but mix it with Vikings Undead. So it's not like it's
That's a
obviously
good
not
one.
it's not a modern shipyard, but
Mhm.
it's old like Nordic style, and they are shipping these, ridiculous mythical style creatures or something like that. You could have that weird, monster-esque stuff, and it's almost like the Vikings like village on the water
Yeah.
is now under attack and stuff like that.
Mhm. See, the ball gets
I don't know.
once we started talking about him, I feel like the ball really got rolling. That's what I needed
It
for the
does. I'm sure if we
inspiration.
had a list in front of us of different stuff, I'd be able to
Yeah.
start picking them off now. But now
Right.
it's like, I like these, but I'm gonna kind of wait on a couple more because this
Yeah.
is a fun concept, and I want Seamus is gonna come up with some crazy ideas, I'm sure. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll we'll wait to do this again when he's back. Uh, but this was a fun one. These
It
are
was fun.
just great filler episodes, I'd say.
Mhm.
We're
Definitely.
so close. I'm sure we're going to be getting announcements soon. And like I said, I know there's been some rumors and some stuff. So I think we're almost back in season where we can bring back our speculation scuttlebutt. I haven't said
Ah,
those words in a long time.
how I missed it.
Haven't said those words.
When
I
I was
miss it.
doing some research for the episode today, I was sitting on our patio watching old HHN videos, and I was like, "Man, what do I do to go to Horror Nights right now? Peak
Until it's the
time."
third week of September, and you're like, why are you going to Horror Nights again right now this week? You've
Yeah,
gone 3 times
literally.
this week.
Nick's
Go
got
to sleep. You're tired. I'm
a
like,
lot
I
of
know,
stamina in him. I'll tell him that.
but it's going to be over soon.
I know, and I always kick myself in the butt because I feel like you're definitely the one. You could stay all night if you wanted to. I'm a grandma. I get tired. I'm in bed by like 10:30. I feel like, But
Oh, I do
I
stay all
miss it.
night. Like, I'm leaving,
I
like,
miss it.
okay, I'm gonna go
Right?
shove another funnel cake down my throat and eat another Carnival hot dog and run the same house 14 more times.
It is fun having Mardi Gras, though. I know you haven't been yet, but
Haven't even gone yet.
I briefly went after work the other day for an hour or two, and I got to check out the tribute store a little bit. There's a lot of people in it, so it's kind of crowded, but giving big Dead Man's vibes. I think you're really gonna like it.
I may
Yeah.
go over.
Mhm.
I know our podcast friends, the Haunt Girls, are reaching their 1 year very
Yeah.
soon, and I know that they're doing a little get together kind of thing on
Mhm.
Sunday, so I may sneak over to Universal because
Mhm.
I miss Universal. I haven't been, and I
Mhm.
miss all the little Horror Nights people.
I do
We don't
too.
see everybody as often as we'd like. During the
Mhm.
off season, you always are like, oh yes, we'll do this, and then
Yeah.
life gets in the way. It just
Mhm.
happens. You
Mhm.
don't see those people as frequently or as often. And those 2 months are very, very cherished memories of seeing all
Yeah.
those people. So it'd be nice to see some faces again mid-season and kind of say what's up to everybody.
And we're off
All
on
right.
Sunday, so why not?
Man, I'm off on Sunday.
And
for
we're
sure.
off.
Horror movie of the week. So I haven't really watched all of this. Really, I've been like kind of living vicariously through the announcements
Mhm.
of Spookala. So Spookala, if you are not familiar, is a little horror con that's put on, either in Ocala or Tampa. This go around, it's in the Florida State Fairgrounds, April 5th to the 7th. But they've just been dropping so many announcements of Scream, and I've just been dying to get back into the Scream franchise. This
Mhm.
week has been crazy, and I haven't been able to watch as much TV as I normally do. But Scream, I mean, I'm going to start watching that this week to jump back in the franchise. So that way,
Mhm.
when Spookala rolls around, I'm just like, oh, I'm in my moment.
It is exciting.
But have you watched any horror movie of the week or anything like that? I also finished up Dahmer. I know I mentioned that last week, and I was
Mhm.
kind of revisiting that on the plane ride home, which I'm sure people were like, what the fuck is this kid watching on his phone?
I watched The Black Phone last time we were on the plane. The last trips, they were probably like, ooh. But I feel like I haven't really watched anything today. I was trying to get inspiration for our Shutter Sunday of something to watch, and I'm not sure how many people are into this movie, but I know a few people who enjoy it, and it's a more of an 80s cult classic I get, but of Night of the Demons. And I've always heard people liked it, so I tried to get into it. It was a little slow at the start, but basically a big 80s horny teens, demons, possess. It's pretty cool, but I couldn't really get into as much, so I don't think we're going to use that one for Shutter Sunday. But haven't really been watching too much this week either. We've been working, so it's been kind of tough.
Stupid work.
Stupid work.
No one likes
Hate it.
work. Just get more. Everybody who listens to this, make one other person listen to this and make that person. It's like a pyramid scheme, but it's not a pyramid.
Right.
So just do that. Make everybody listen, so that way I don't have to work my job anymore.
You don't
I
got to
can
give
just
us
talk on
money.
this microphone. No. Make the other people give us money. That's how it works. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's like a triangle. Like there's one guy at the top, and then you get two people below him, and then you get the other people below that person. But it's not a pyramid scheme. Been watching too much. It's Always Sunny.
I was just going to say, why does that sound so familiar? It's Always Sunny?
Yeah.
Yep.
That and The Office when Michael falls for the pyramid scheme.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is our horror movie of the week that we were kind of watching over. That is the whole discussion of the week where we're talking about mashups. If you have any other mashups that you kind of are feeling, let us know on Twitter or Instagram. You can find us there, Fear and Beer Pod. But man, like I said last week, I'm going to keep saying it until we get some concrete news or anything like that. But it is coming. It's coming very fast because before you know it, we're going to be in March, and that's when stuff really starts leaking out. That speculation map version 1 should be coming around the corner, I'd say. But that about wraps it up. So until next time, this is Nick.
This is Jamie.
Happy haunts. Cue the music.
I forgot we were doing this now.
And again, I would just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.